Well, good evening all and welcome. My name is David Brashear. I'm the director of the Muscarelle Museum of Art. It's great to have you all with us this evening. This is, of course, our next installment, our fall 2021 Muscarelle Exploration Series, entitled this fall, The Voice of the Artist. We've spoken with a number of artists throughout the fall months. It's been a really wonderful experience. And now we're back with one of our first speakers tonight, Roberto Jamora. And more on that in a few minutes. I wanted to let you all know that this coming Tuesday, December 7th, we'll be having a special presentation at the Muscarelle with my good friend and partner, Bill Butler, the architect, the design architect for our museum expansion project. And he, of course, is with Pelly Clark and Partners, the world-renowned firm based in New Haven, Connecticut. So we'll be speaking at the Muscarelle Museum on Tuesday, December 7th. I hope you can join us. But back to the voice of the artist. We had, as I mentioned, Roberto Jamora joined us in a residency and, of course, a lecture at the end of September. We recently hosted Diego and Cara Romero for a wonderful visit a couple of weeks ago at the Muscarelle. And we are back again this Thursday, I'm sorry, with our Muscarelle Reads. This time we're going to hear about the voice of the artist through writing. We flew over the bridge, the memoirs of Faith Ringgold, by, of course, Faith Ringgold, that amazing artist. Steve Prince, our director of engagement, will be hosting that book discussion this Thursday evening at 6 p.m. So I hope you'll join us for that. So tonight, we are, of course, back with our Asian Centennial at William & Mary. And I want to turn it over to Professor Francis Tanglo-Aguas, who is one of the co-chairs of the Asian Centennial here at William & Mary, a very close partner with us at the Muscarelle Museum, and quite frankly, a good friend of the Muscarelle Museum and many of us on staff. So Professor Aguas, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, David. What an honor to be here. And good evening, everyone. Thank you for gracing us with your presence on this very auspicious event. It's taken us 100 years to get to this moment, and it has been the greatest pleasure and honor to have first in line for our collaborators on this wonderful platform, the Muscarelle Museum, led by David Brashear and Steve Prince and Melissa. They were first in line, and we in the Asian Centennial could not be any more fortunate. They paved the way to become models for the rest of the university community, demonstrating how this Asian Centennial can be everyone's centennial, truly at William & Mary and beyond in our local community. Local and community are keywords to our decision, which was very easy to do despite the choices that we had for the Asian Centennial Distinguished Fine Arts Fellow in Residence. We wanted someone who could be a testament to how the arts demonstrate how communities can produce the artist who can tell the stories of the very people they live with. We believe that William & Mary and the Muscarelle Museum stand for that. This Asian Centennial, as grand as it sounds, is really rooted in documenting the experiences and contributions of our earliest students. And what we found out through the ongoing research is that the experience of those early students like Pukao Chen, who came here in 1921 from China, are quite similar to the experiences of all Asian Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern, Southwest Asian faculty, staff, students, and residents at Williamsburg, in Virginia, and possibly in the United States. And this is the reason why we selected Roberto Jamora with a BFA from Virginia Commonwealth University and his Master of Fine Arts from Purchase College, with his artwork displayed at private collections, including Capital One, Harvard Kennedy School, private collectors in the Philippines, in the US, and now the Muscarelle Museum. Above all his qualifications, it was the fact that here was a local homegrown artist from Virginia Beach, outside of San Francisco and New York, the largest concentration of Filipino Americans, and in Virginia, the largest population of Asian Americans in any given area. It was important for us that the person who would tell the story of Asian Americans at William and Mary and Williamsburg be someone who was from within our community. And it is with that it was just without a doubt and no question that it would have to be Roberto Jamora who would tell our story through his artwork. So it gives me great pleasure and honor to present once again our Asian Centennial Distinguished Fine Arts Fellow and Muscarelle Museum Artist in Residence, Roberto Jamora.
Kind of almost like a game for me to make this print. It was like the most complex print I'd ever made. I had an idea of what I was going to kind of research. I was researching kind of the land, the rivers, and time, basically history. So I knew that I was going to think about the early Asian students who enrolled here at William & Mary, since of course that's what we're celebrating. Essentially 100 years of Asian students at William & Mary. Coming in with a plan, thinking about color, thinking about time and space, thinking about specific people, but also responding to the people on this journey that I've met. So these two shapes right here are actually the James River and the York River. And in this area right here, this is what we're printing out today. In my print, you'll see that there's a lot of kind of symbols of rivers. There's the symbols of different flowers from different regions of Asia. There's images of some of the early Asian students at William & Mary. And then there's 4 skin tones, one of which is mine, another which is Steve Prince's skin tone, to emphasize the kind of collaboration in the BIPOC community and thinking about coalition building. And luckily I was fortunate, Miles, one of the students here in the art department, Filipinx student, volunteered to mix their skin tones, which I screen printed on the print. So it's kind of immortalized on the print. And also Professor Aguas's skin tone is on the print as well. So there's a lot of symbols that deal with specific people, specifically 7 people from William & Mary, and also the geography and the landscape. So everything kind of points to William & Mary, but then the flowers also kind of alluding to this kind of Pan-Asian experience. Pukao Chen was a really great writer, and he chronicles his journey from Angel Island to Williamsburg, Virginia, to enroll at the College of William & Mary. And it was interesting to me that, like, a lot of the things that he was struggling with then, a lot of Asian American students face those same things today. Issues about representation, and also just straight up bigotry.
You know, through the Muscarelle Museum, we're working with Roberto Jamora in conjunction with the Asian Centennial. It's been an absolutely fantastic merger. And this is the start of a new program that we have where we want to have an artist in residency, where we invite different artists to come to the campus to engage the campus life and working with the art department, and also in conjunction with the Muscarelle Museum. So it gives us a wonderful opportunity to get different people of color onto the campus, and will also help us to bolster our collection and have it be more representative of the diversity of the people that are in not only this city, not only part of this institution, but of our nation in this world.
So essentially, silkscreen printing is the creation of stencils. through a photographic process. So this is photo emulsion on here, and we put these pieces of paper to block out the light.
What he has there is also called the rainbow run. So that means that he has one color that's laying next to another color, next to another color. That means each time those colors are next to each other, they are blending between each other to make like that rainbow color so it looks like a gradation. So every time he does that, you can't control that gradation to be exactly the same every time.
I think what unites like all artists, depending on the medium, is that we want to share something with people. And what that thing for me is that Asian people are beautiful. I think there's a lot of times in my life where I felt that because of being Asian that I was less than, even, and it wasn't like somebody telling me all the time, but I felt like it became this, there was this internal dominator that would tell me these messages based on what the world was telling me. And I felt like in this print, I wanted to show very concrete images. I'm an abstract painter, so I don't typically use concrete images. But I also wanted to offer another kind of image that an Asian artist could also be an abstract painter. An Asian artist can also depict humanity through color. An Asian artist can do it through using images in a positive way, and can build this relationship with the materials of screen printing in ways that are innovative, even though it's kind of an old medium. I mean, it's been around for a long time. It's basically just stencil making.
If you think about, what William & Mary is doing right now, and William & Mary has been very soberly looking at its past, and we know the history of this institution and its connection to slavery. And it's not trying to hide away from dealing with, grappling with those issues. We know about, that this is the Asian Centennial, and that you had 100 years ago, you had the first students to come on this campus, but meanwhile, this institution started in 1693. So there was a lot of years where there has been a lot of neglect. And so I think as this institution continues to go forward, I think it is a wonderful opportunity for us to atone for those past sins, for us to fill in those gaps where people have been in the space of lack, and that we put them in the space where they are included.
I am still kind of reflecting on this experience, and I feel like this is such a special place with such an important history that needs to be told. And I'm just I really feel like I'm just like one part of this mosaic, because it is such a collaborative process with all of the different talks, lectures, performances. I'm just making a couple pieces of art. So I'm very humbled by this experience, and I feel like I hope to give back to this experience, to the school, to the students, to the people, to the families. But I feel like I've been given just like so much. I've been learning so much here, and just taking in the experience, because I feel like there's so many people here with so much to give, and it's really inspiring to be a part of this Asian Centennial.
Last one. This is the last one, baby. This is it. This is where all in. Get that one right. Get that one right. Get the thing on there nice and smooth. There we go. There you go.
Oh man.
Yeah, let's move it slow right on out of there. The last one.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, brother. More. Bam. Good song.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to share my screen real fast. I was just reflecting on that video. Thank you all for those introductions. 1 second, please. All right.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Roberto Jamora. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm the William and Mary Asian Centennial Distinguished Fine Arts Fellow. I'm an artist and educator. Just wanted to say thank you so much to the Muscarelle Museum of Art, my brothers, Francis Tanglo Aguas, Steve Prince, Dinesh Sahoni. You all are true mountain movers. Thank you for showing me radical hospitality and inviting me to create on campus in your home. David Brashear, Melissa Paris, Laura Fogarty, and Kevin Gilliam, thank you for making inclusion in the museum real. Your support is leaving a long-lasting legacy for all of us. To Professor Brian Credatis, Professor Elizabeth Mead, and also Michael Drager, and the whole art department at William & Mary. You all are such special people, educators, and it's been such a privilege to work in your midst. A special shout out to the fabulous students, Ella Goldschmidt, Sarah Wicker, Chris Eliadis, Miles Piontek, and Gabrielle Credatis for helping out with the edition. Also, big thank you and shout out to my spring 2021 Filipino diaspora students. It's been so great to see you on campus this semester. And another big shout out to my students and colleagues at VCU Arts, my studio assistant, Andy, my parents for believing me and supporting my work. And the biggest thank you to my wife, Casey Johnson Hamora, who's on here as well. But yeah, this I just wanted to give some context to the work that I've been making in relation to the Asian Centennial and to the print that that was just unveiled. So it's very humbling to see this video. It's the first time I saw this full-length video. And you know, why art? I find myself always contemplating that, even as I've been teaching for several years now. This is the painting that I'm so honored to have also in the collection of the Muscarelle Art Museum, which we'll talk about a little bit more. It's The Sound of Fate Knocking at the Door too, which I added to the slide that it's part of the Muscarelle Museum of Art permanent collection, which is so humbling. I won't read all of these passages, but I primarily work with first-year visual arts majors at Virginia Commonwealth University School of the Arts. And to set the tone in the semester, I often ask my student, what calls you to be an artist? Now, regardless of what major they're going to get into. I also have them read this beautiful essay written by James Baldwin titled The Creative Process from 1962. And I won't read the entire passages, but I highlighted two quotes that I believe are relevant to the work I've been doing as the Asian Centennial Distinguished Fine Arts Fellow. Thinking about the role of the artist, James Baldwin writes, the precise role of the artist then is to illuminate that darkness, blaze roads through the vast forest so that we will not, in all our doing, lose sight of its purpose, which is, after all, to make the world a more human dwelling place. A more human dwelling place. He goes on to say that societies never know it, but the war of an artist with his society is a lover's war. And he does at his best what lovers do, which is to reveal the beloved to himself. And with that revelation, to make freedom real. And to contextualize the work that I do, I'd like to share some of that process with you. And you'll see that a large part of what I do is careful revealing. And this revealing exposes color or forms that relate to specific people, places, and memories. And here's an example of a process I used to find color from photos. And this photo is from when I studied abroad in the Philippines in 2007, which was one of the most transformative experiences that for me demystified and also complicated the home of my parents and ancestors for me. And in this particular photo, I'm standing with my classmates and folks from my extended community in the Batad Rice Terraces in Ifugao, Philippines. So from this process, I created this painting to commemorate the people and the journey along my way. I created this painting titled Kayumangi, which is the Tagalog word to describe the brown skin tone of Filipino people. And it measures 21 inches by 18 inches, and it's acrylic and pumice medium on canvas. And I made this last summer. And this painting includes 4 incisions with colors from specific places we went to in the Philippines, including Mount Banahaw, Laguna de Bay, a sunset at UP Los Baños, and the rice terraces I shared with you all earlier. And on the top layer, I squeegeed the skin tones of several of my classmates across the canvas to create an interconnected gradient to celebrate the range of Filipinx experiences. That interconnectedness is something that is important in all of the work that I make. And in my work, reflection doesn't really merely mean remembering, but reimagining what could possibly be. And thinking about what color could do and what can it do. which brings me to this painting, which I mentioned is in the collection now, which is related to the work that I've been doing to the for the Asian Centennial celebration. And the title of the piece is inspired by the first four notes of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, which Anton Schindler, one of Beethoven's early biographer, claims is the sound of fate knocking at the door, the intended feeling that Beethoven was envisioning as he wrote those first iconic four notes. Bum, 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 bum. But in terms of picking colors in my work, I'm obsessed with the magic and the beauty of the everyday. And in fact, perhaps much to my wife's dismay, this is a photo of her that some of the colors in the painting include from the day we moved from New York City to Richmond, Virginia. You'll see the Formica walls of our old elevator in our mid-century apartment building in Queens, and my wife's skin tones as well. Skin tones of my dear friends Maren Hassinger and Stacy Lynn Waddell, really extraordinary artists. Fats Domino's house in New Orleans, where I spent 3 months making artwork and doing creative research a couple of years ago. Thinking about those everyday moments where fate seems to knock on the door and nothing else can be the same. I feel like teaching does that a lot. I feel like we learn things that transform our lives. I think teaching can transform the teacher's lives, a teacher's life. So I always talk about and shout out my students, because I feel like as much as I curate their educational experience, I love learning. That's why I love teaching, and teaching inspires the work that I make. And the Filipino diaspora class I teach at William and Mary in the spring includes topics like decolonization, reclaiming our roots, revealing what is lost in the assimilation process. And the community that we fostered was really extraordinary, despite the class being taught completely online last semester because of the pandemic. But as we were working on our ink drawings, because I teach the diaspora through the lens of an artist, I just thought it was so amazing to see this like grid of ink drawings. And what you're looking at here is the pre-colonial Tagalog handwriting system called Babayin. And I just thought this was such an important like healing process of us. And if folks were not Filipinos, this thing that I was so happy to share with folks, to handwrite like our ancestors did. And in the process of teaching Babayan, one particular letter ended up inspiring several of my recent paintings, and including the print that was just unveiled, which is the Babayan letter for Ka, which signifies unity between people when added to certain words like kapatid, sibling, kasama, comrade, kaibigan, friend, kababayan, compatriot. This is expressed through two wavy lines, some say represent rivers and are connected by a bridge. So I just love that even our pre-colonial language referred to the land, the environment. So I created this painting called A Bridge Connecting Two Rivers, and it was actually a very labor-intensive painting to make. It's actually a wood plywood panel that's been jigsawed into two kind of puzzle pieces. But the thing that connects these two disparate halves are the skin tones of mostly Filipino, but all Black, Indigenous, and people of color throughout this incision that goes from one side of the one corner of the canvas to the other. And then the colors throughout are places from the Philippines and places that I consider my home. And further investigating this idea of the bridge, this painting is called Barangay. And you'll see it's like another puzzle piece kind of painting on a wood panel that is connected by 8 skin tones of Filipino people, those Kayo-Mangi skin tones. But a common theme in my teaching, especially in the Filipino diaspora class, is the idea of coalition building. And I thought about how rivers and water connects people. And in fact, while I was in residence at William & Mary, which was such an amazing, powerful 2 weeks, I just had the opportunity, like one of the greatest like like experiences, period. Watching Gamelan Kudamani perform here at the Williamsburg Public Library, and Emiko Saraswati Susilo, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing the name, in in a way that is not authentic. But she mentioned about, she talked about how waters, rivers, and oceans connect the whole world together, and which inspired one of the compositions that the Gamelan Kudamani performed. So I felt like I was channeling the energy of the land and of the rivers. So what you see here are two photos, one of the James River and then a sunrise at the York River near Williamsburg. When I was living here, just kind of soaking in the experience and doing my creative research, learning and knowing more about the land, more about the people, the history of the early Asians at William and Mary. And we're celebrating 100 years of Asian students at William and Mary. Indeed, it's such an amazing thing. And it's a long looking backward too. I mean, I feel like thinking about connections is a big part of my work, and the connections from the past to the present here. Unfortunately, some of those connections are the xenophobia and hate that the early Asians and what we face today. It's been heavily documented by the Stop AAPI movement, but there has been progress. And I do want to say a big thank you to Brian Zhao and Sumie Yotsukura, Professor Sahomi, and SWEM Library Special Collections. And if you haven't already, please check out their exhibition, Pukao Chen, Thoughts of 1923 US and William and Mary at SWEM. Very powerful exhibition. And I feel like, and I mentioned this, I believe to Sumie and Brian, last time I was in town, was like, you know, why did it take 100 years for us to know all of this? I mean, this is such important history, and it is troubling, and I think we need to know this to heal from it. I won't read the entire passage, but the last paragraph mentions, and these are Pukao Chen's words. It often troubles me, especially in those days, my mental depression, to think that great as the American civilization is, there should be a small fraction of people who seem to think China a somewhat barbaric country and her citizens an unruly set of people, or as it were, a massive antediluvian men. And the racist words above that I won't read. But you know, despite the pain, I feel like there is a lot of power into it. Certainly, there's a lot of power in what we've been doing here. And like I mentioned in the video, I feel like I'm just one part of that mosaic. And part of my research is really just seeing what the experience is like visually for Asian students at William and Mary. So another shout out to SWEM Library Special Collections. It's been such a pleasure. And the folks over there have been like so helpful and just like sharing with me these images of Art Matsu. The second Asian to attend William and Mary, who was real standout athlete, played I think like 3 or 4 basketball, football, track, also played in performed in theater. And I'm a bit of a sports nerd myself, and aside from my usual minimal color field paintings, I am obsessed with plays on the field, on court. So I in addition to making my very emotional, abstract, minimal paintings, I do make these works of art that deal with route trees on an American gridiron football field. So these are older paintings called Wide Receiver and Tight End 2 that examine movements on the field of American gridiron football. Another images of Art Matsu, just thinking about what these experiences are. I mean, there's so few images because of obviously technology and the times, but I mean, that football helmet on the left looks like it's not protecting anybody, certainly. But collaboration is certainly at the heart of this Asian Centennial. I feel like we're learning from each other. I feel like one of the great things about William and Mary is the collaboration that takes place between professors and students. I had the really great opportunity to collaborate with Professor Aguas's Media and Agency Mobilization class. And I introduced them to the screen printing process. And what we did was I gave them a very short talk about, and we discussed composition, what makes a photograph on Instagram look good, or just art in general. And then we went on a walk from Boswell Hall to Motoko Art Studio, picking up leaves, detritus along the way, feathers and twigs and so forth. And just thinking about how with minimal stuff, we can really create a beautiful composition. So you can see here some of the stuff we picked up. We made like a little composition on this piece of paper. And in that screen printing process, we blast this screen that has this photo sensitive emulsion on it, and then we blast a UV light onto this screen, which you can see me holding on the right here. So we all took turns in like moving some of the stuff around, the twigs and the leaves and so forth, to create this pattern, this design. And then I sprayed out the stencil here. And we'll talk more about that process later. But it's been around for a while. It's basically we're stencil making. You can start to see the leaves start to form as I spray the water where our leaves were occupying the screen. So I was hoping it was going to work, because it could be tricky, and I gave a thumbs up because it was in fact doing its thing. So you'll see me spraying out the screen to create the stencil. And then the printing began. Here I am showing Professor Aguas how to pull ink through a silkscreen mesh in a frame here to create the background. We're just doing these rainbow runs here. And the results are really beautiful. Here is a freshly printed background by none other than our Eddie Choi here, Asian APIA student. So it was really great to work with you again, Eddie. And in this process, we were just making a 2-layer print here with a background and images in the foreground. This whole workshop took 3 hours, and at the end, everybody had a work of art. The entire class went home with a beautiful print that we all collaborated on. So it was a great experience. And it was fun too. Working at Matoka Art Studio was such a pleasure, and the students are just so great to work with. I think the community really is so special at William and Mary's art department. There's so many steps in the process. I know we're going to discuss this process a little bit more, but I just wanted to share some shots with you, some action shots, before we talk more about the print. I know there will be some more content later on. There's a lot of layers. I mentioned in the video that it was the most complex print. I felt like I kept wanting to add stuff. The more I learned, the more I walked the grounds of the campus. I was like, oh, maybe I should include this, or but I feel like in the end, I feel like this was just the first of like the 5 projects I'm doing at William and Mary. So I was like, that's cool. I can continue to do my research. But here I am sharing the process and the content behind the print with Professor Augus's class here. Like you saw in the video, so you're seeing really like the under layers too. So what folks typically don't see happening here, there's so much overlapping that happens in the print. So like you'll print something and most of it will disappear later on. We had to print 76 to get 50 good ones. So it was quite the process with basically 17 layers here. And my next slide is the last. I don't want to speak for too long, but I just wanted to say once again, thank you so much to Steve Prince, the Muscarelle Museum of Art, and the William and Mary Art Department for your assistance in this project. It really was such a pleasure, and I think I learned so much in this way. Steve Prince, you have an encyclopedic mind for printmaking, which is William and Mary is so, like the state of Virginia really is so lucky to have you here. And yeah, thank you all so much. Here's the prints, and I'll let the next person take it away. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much, Roberto. Again, just taking us back down that memory lane in terms of the process. One thing that I would definitely say is that in the process of creating with someone, you really, really get to know them. And especially within the studio, because it is a sacred space. And the other thing that that really struck me when I thought about this process that Roberto just walked us through is that our collective past may be stained, but our future is untouched. And that's what we're working for. And so I'm just so grateful for have that time to work with Roberto and to work with all the people that were involved to make this a success. And I had some echo pictures that I wanted to share and just slow it down so we can just see a little bit more in terms of what it means to make this work. You know, Roberto said, yes, he made 17 up to 19 different colors, but with 70 prints, that's about 1,500 pulls. And you know, to pull each one of those pieces, you know, so that's the amount of labor that went into the making of it. So let us not forget the amount of labor that went into the creation of all of this work. So I have just a little short PowerPoint I'm gonna share with you. Bear with me. And I'm just going to walk us back through just some of the elements in terms of the steps. We cannot forget Casey. And I know for sure in terms of just the process of an artist, and especially if an artist has a significant other, the amount of sacrifices that go between a couple, and that, you know, we took, you know, Roberto away from the home for a couple of weeks and he was here working. But we also understand just the importance of a balance between a couple in terms of the everyday, which Roberto so eloquently spoke of. So I want to say a special thank you to Casey for allowing us to have Roberto here for a few weeks and to not only enrich my life, but enrich the lives of the people here on this campus, but also that he's left something behind that's going to affect generations. So thank you to both of you and what you've offered here. You know, aren't they a beautiful pandemic couple? Look at those masks. And so that piece, again, now he has something that's part of the permanent collection of our museum. And again, I want to second on just the significance of that, and that he is a living artist that we're supporting and that we have put into this collection, and the importance of supporting our living artists, the importance of supporting our artists right here in our community that are right in our backyard. And the importance of sharing the history, the importance of us digging through the dirt of the past and trying to imagine and to create a better space for more students to be able to exist within this space so that they feel the true sense of what it means to be in a community, what it means to be at home. And as Roberto was talking about in terms of this process, and one of the machines that we work with, this is an exposing unit. And if you look at it, it's a machine that produces UV lights. And we're using a photosensitive material on there, and that material has been laid inside of it, inside the screen, which is porous, meaning if water were poured on top of it, it goes straight through it. But the entire screen is clogged with this material. Then after it's exposed to the light, then he goes outside and he sprays at the screen, and the spaces that was exposed to the light get hard. The spaces that were not exposed to the light get soft. And then if you look at the screen, you'll see that there's a light spot over there. And that basically means that that is where the ink can flow through there. And how do we get it through? It goes through with a squeegee. And the squeegee is the material that he has in his hand. Now, this is not just any old squeegeeing activity that's going on. It is something that he has learned over a period of time, a lot of trial and a lot of errors in order to figure out how to get that at the right angle, how to exert the right amount of pressure in order to get that ink to transfer through that screen through a force and get it to transfer onto paper. And one of the first things that Roberto did here, if you look at the small print, he came here, he had to test all the materials out. Because one of the hardest things for an artist to do is to come into a new studio space that is not theirs, and he had to figure out all the things in the shop. And he had to figure out what was his rhythm, what was his way in which he was going to work. And one of the things that I had to do as an artist, I had to try to help to facilitate all that happening for him, but at the same token, get out of the way so he can figure out what was the right mix of the space that he needed. And so we had to figure out our dance between us. And then, oh, just the beautiful help of the students. that helped to create just the little hole punches on there so we can have the registration process put into there properly. And they did this work and pulled, and if you notice the very bottom of the paper, you see it, they have these little plastic tabs, and on the back of them is the blue tape, because each one of them had to have those registration pins or tabs attached to them so that every time you put a color, it will fall in the same place on each one of the subsequent prints. Now, Roberto was on the side working painstakingly, cutting away film and getting different transparencies and making those different images. And then he would squeegee that color straight through. And different people came in through the shop. Sometimes they had to hear him fuss a little bit because sometimes the color just didn't work out right. But that's part of the process of being in the studio. And I love being in that because I know what it feels like as an artist, as you're working through these problems and these issues and you're trying to figure it out and you're trying to make this thing work. And he's trying to get these 50 prints to work out. All the painstaking colors that were mixed to try to get the different colors to work out. And again, more people came through, being exposed to this process. And then they were taught how to work within this assembly line, how to get those colors to layer upon layer upon layer. And each time, if you look at Roberto on the right, you can see him just studying each piece that comes into play, each one that gets squeegeed. He's checking to make sure that they have the consistency on the rack and making sure that every time he has a conversation with these pieces until he finds the final image. And then he came back to the museum and he signed each and every one of those prints, individually signed, but also numbered. And if we think about the numbering system, there's a number that's above and there's a number below. The number below is fixed. That is what is called the edition. The number above is the number within the edition. So if you see 2 over 50, 3 over 50, so forth, so on, and the number keeps going up, that means that that's the number that you will get falling within that whole line until we get to the last will be 50 over 50 or 40 over 40 or 70 over 70, any of those numbers like that. I wanted to share with you just a little bit, just 2 minutes of just a quick share of some of the things when we think about what does this project go in terms of support. And one of the things that is going to go in support is some of the programs that we've been having going on in the Muscarelle Museum for a number of years now. One of those projects, the Lynx Project, which took place in 2019, which commemorated the first 28 Africans that come to Point Comfort in 1619. The Muscarelle Museum, we created a show called 1619 to 2019. And we had different African-American artists' works showcased at the Muscarelle Museum. And we purchased a number of those pieces and put into our permanent collection. And then we had this special project called the Lynx Project, where we work with over 500 people from 20 different countries. And we inked these pieces together and we created a series of prints outside of the Ring building. And we brought them all together and we had them in the Muscarelle Museum on display for everyone to see. And then those pieces got translated and we moved them over to the Sadler Center. And then you notice that there's some more pieces on top because there was another collaborative project the Muscarelle Museum did with a group of students that again begin to focus on the past of William and Mary and its slavery past. Again, dealing with the stains of our past. And then other projects in the community. You think about what are the funds of this project will go in support of. Other ways in which we're trying to continue to do outreach and connect with the students and connect with programs that are going on campus. And this was a musical concert that was happening. And we created an opportunity where students created their own original shirts. The classes that take place in the Muscarelle Museum. This one just took place this weekend. If we look at the catalog that we produce 2 times a year, in the fall and the spring, you'll see a whole host of different programs that we'll be having. And the new shows that are becoming and the different workshops and lectures and programs associated with it. And a large community project the Muscarelle Museum is connected to that's going on right now called the Community Quilt Project. And we're getting people to create these individualized story quilts about their lives. Eventually they're going to come together and we're going to create a giant quilt and we're going to call it the Dark Street Mile Quilt. And some of the ways in which these quilting projects are interfacing with other programs right on campus, and one in particular, the dance program. And our wonderful guests that we just had on campus, Diego and Carol Romero. Oh, what a beautiful impact that they made upon this campus. And we think about what Roberto Jamora has placed here. Just think about so many other artists that will come here that will follow him, that some of the proceeds that of what he has created will open the doors for more artists to continue to create an impact, to continue to get us to look back at that past, to continue to get us to envision who we could be or who we can be. Thank you. We want to make sure that we, again, as we think about today, today is Giving Tuesday. And we are in the process of generating funds for the creation of the expansion of the Muscarelle Museum. And this museum, as you can see in this image that's on our screen right now, it will show you the vision of what's coming in the future. And again, the expansion of this space and the creation of more space to have more shows that help us to critically look at the past and help us to move together as a collective body. This museum will continue to raise the bar on the campus and get us to look critically at ourselves and again at who we can be. And so we're so grateful for Roberto and his contributions and so forth. And you have the wonderful opportunity to have one of those prints. And they're going for $1,000. The name of the piece is called Confluence. And you see the size specs of 22.5 inches by 30 inches, which is a sheet size, and 15.75 inches by 24 inches is the actual image size. It's printed on stone inch paper. And this edition was all printed right here on our campus. I love to think about the fact that this was done in what we call the conceptual storehouse, and that it was done right here by the hands of the artists and in conjunction with the students. And then to know that you're purchasing something that will continue to accrue in value. And I love the fact that this is from a living artist that we are supporting. And that as we continue to see who will grow and who will continue to make more work and continue to impact his community, our community. And so we have links that will show up that you will have the opportunity to purchase this print and know that where the funds are not just simply going to anything, it's going to support more programming, more visual artists to come to the campus to continue to help challenge us through the power of the cathartic nature of the arts.
So Steve, I think you were going to moderate some questions and answers if there are any from our participants in the audience. And if you want to pose a question to Steve or Roberto, please just post it in the chat or in the Q&A function. Just to let you all know as well, if you have interest in purchasing the print, you can contact us at the museum or go through our website, and we will package that up very nicely and get it out to you as quickly as we can.
We have a question here. Will there be a printed poster version of the Confluence work more affordable for students?
That is a great question, and I think probably something we ought to talk to Roberto about. But stay tuned on that. And I think Roberto may have just been disconnected. Is that possible?
Yeah, so I'm sure he'll get back in. As Roberto is trying to get reconnected, I'm sure he has some connectivity issues that took place. Again, I want to just extend another thank you to everyone that was involved, that this was no one person endeavor to make this whole project happen, that this again was a community working together. I'm so grateful for all of the work that's been done by the Asian Centennial and the different processes and the different talks and programs that are so beautiful and so full. So I encourage everyone that is watching this video to go to the website and then check out the different things that are happening all across the campus and in the community abroad. And that will be taking place all year long, but it won't stop there. As the Asian Centennial folks and organizers will let you know very clearly that this is something that is ongoing, that is not a one-off. And that if we're going to create true change on our campus, if we're going to create true change in our society, it has to be something that is sustained. And so I'm so grateful to partner with them through the Muscarelle Museum, and to just continue to just challenge not only ourselves as we look in the mirror, but also how do we really just push the envelope in terms of creating new spaces of new understanding. So I have a question for you, Roberto. And the question just goes back into the studio. I know that it was challenging. I can imagine it being very challenging, you know, coming from your studio up in Richmond and coming down to William and Mary. Could you just speak about that shift that took place, and then how that shift may have affected the kind of work that you have traditionally done?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Steve. I feel like I know you're an artist who does a lot of artist residencies, and I try to do an artist residency like once a year, and I feel like I look forward to really focusing in on my artistic process, and because I feel like these times where one could really just can focus like the majority of their day on the act of creating and creative research, I think is like pretty rare. I feel like there's a lot of things taking our attention, the push notifications on our phones, just like the day-to-day tasks that we have. So I felt for me, like in terms of challenges, I feel like they're welcome artistic challenges. I mean, they're creative problems that, you know, we are tasked with solving. You know, how do we synthesize the experience of people? And if we are doing that, like when we share what we are called to do with folks, it's that idea of like sharing like what an experience feels like. I feel like it's, for me, I feel like thinking about our connection as a collective APM community, thinking about the things that we all have a relationship with, to the land, the place, and the history. I think that's, for me, that's kind of like, for me, what didn't so much change, but I think it just kind of focused. My work is always about memory, but I feel like the memories that the work that I'm working on at William & Mary's Asian Centennial deals with specific communities, and that goes beyond just my own personal experience, although I am part of the community. So I think one of the things that just, it's almost like an assignment, and I feel like as a professor who assigns things to people, to creates projects, I think it was one that like that was a welcome challenge, and it's just the first of like several of the projects that I have upcoming. So yeah, I'm enthused, and everyone has been so great and collaborative. It's such a great it's such a great community in general. And I think some of the stuff we have coming down the road is expanding the commencement stall for the Asian Pacific Middle Eastern commencement. I'm working on another edition in the spring, a mixed media piece, and then a self-portrait to synthesize my own personal experience as the Distinguished Fine Arts Fellow over this year. So I'm always excited to kind of put all these pieces together and kind of re-present what we've been given. So yeah, I feel like I welcome these changes. I welcome the new information, the new experiences, because it allows for new work to be made.
Well, fantastic. Roberto, thank you so much. Steve, thank you. Francis, Dinesh, thank you all for joining in tonight. And thank you all in the audience for being here once more for a presentation from the Muscarelle Museum. Have a great evening.